You've written the policy, you've communicated the strategy, you've run the all hands meeting, you've sent the email, and then nothing changes. Or worse, something changes for 3 weeks and then silently reverts back to exactly how it was before. Every turnaround I've run has encountered this. The strategy is right, the operational plan is sound, and the people are doing what people do. They respond to their actual incentives and not their stated job descriptions. Today, we are going to decode why. Hello, my name is Todd Hagopian, the original Stagnation Assassin, the author of The Unfair Advantage and the author of Stagnation Assassin, both available on Amazon. Today on the Stagnation Assassin MBA, we are cracking open organizational behavior. I'm going to tell you exactly what they teach you in the program, what they leave out, and what you actually need to know if you're running a real business in the real world. Organizational behavior is a core MBA course that covers 50 years of research on human behavior in organizational settings. The question is not whether this research is valid. Most of it absolutely is. The question is which findings are most operationally important? And more importantly than that question, how do you translate them from academic findings into operational leverage at work? So let's look at what the textbook says. Here is what the textbook says about organizational behavior. And to be fair, it's not wrong. Organizational behavior as a discipline emerged from the mid 20th century from the intersection of industrial psychology, sociology, and management theory. The field studies individual behavior, which is really interesting, motivation, perception, personality, and decision making. It also studies group behavior, team dynamics, communication, conflict, power, and organizational factors, culture, structure, change. The foundational figures include Hertzberg two-factor theory motivation, McGregor's theory X and theory Y, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Vroom's expectancy theory, and many others. More recent research has produced substantial findings in behavioral economics, social psychology, and even neuroscience. The core organizational behavior finding, consistent across decades of research, is that human behavior in organizations is not primarily driven by rational self interest maximization. It is driven by a complex combination of intrinsic motivation, social norms, perceived fairness, and cognitive biases, along with the incentive response. So let's look at the real world debrief. Does this hold water? Organizational behavior research earns its tuition in three specific operational applications. First, understanding the gap between stated and actual motivation. Expectancy theory, Vroom's model, tells us that people will perform when they believe that that effort leads to performance. Performance leads to reward, and the reward is something that they actually value. Every one of those links can fail independently. Most performance management systems assume that those links hold, but they often don't. Second, social proof and norm behavior. Cialdini's research on social influence, extensively validated, tells us that in uncertain situations, people look to what others are doing as a guide for what they should do. This means that cultural change is propagated not by policy, but by visible behavior modeling. Who the respected peers are doing matters more than what the policy says. The policy tells people what they should do. The culture shows them what they actually do. The gap between those two things is where organizational performance is lost. Third, loss aversion and change management. Kahneman and Tversky's findings that losses loom approximately twice as large as equivalent gains explains why organizational change generates resistance even when that change is objectively beneficial. People focus on what they lose, familiarity, status, control, more than what they gain. Operators who understand this frame change communication around loss minimization and not just gain articulation. Let's look at the operating room. Where does this break down? And here's where the professor sits down and all of us operators stand up. Organizational behavior fails in operational practice for three reasons. Failure number one, the research findings are probabilistic and context dependent. They describe what happens on average across populations. Your specific team and your specific culture facing your specific challenge may behave very differently from the research average. Applying organizational behavior findings as universal rules produces many errors. OB research tells you the odds, it doesn't tell you your hand. You still have to read the room. Failure number two, the incentive design implications are rarely implemented correctly. The research on what drives performance is clear: autonomy, mastery, purpose for intrinsic motivation, clear, achievable targets, and visible and valued rewards for extrinsic motivation. But most organizational incentive systems are designed by finance teams, optimizing for accounting convenience, not behavioral science. The result is incentive structures that drive the wrong behaviors. Failure 3, OB is taught as a theory, not as a diagnostic protocol. Knowing that loss aversion is real doesn't tell you how to design the change communication for your specific workplace and their specific losses. Knowing that social proof matters doesn't tell you which voices carry credibility in your organization. The translation from research findings to operational action is almost entirely absent from MBA organizational behavior courses. So let's look at the operator's upgrade. What do we need to do to fix this thing? 3 OB findings that should change how you operate this week. Finding number one: people respond to what is measured and rewarded, not what is stated in your value documents. Audit your measurement and reward systems. Whatever behaviors those systems incentivize are the behaviors that you're actually asking your employees to do, regardless of what your strategy deck says. If you measure revenue and reward revenue, you will get revenue. If you also want margin, then you need to measure it and you need to reward it and you need to make it equally visible. Finding number two: small wins build momentum more reliably than big visions. Maybill and Kramer's progress principle, that the most powerful motivator for most workers most of the time is making progress in meaningful work, means that breaking transformation goals into visible, achievable milestones produces more sustained behavioral change than an inspirational all hands presentation. Finding number three: model the behavior you want before you mandate it. In every turnaround, the fastest cultural shift that I've produced has come from personal behavior modeling at the leadership level, showing up differently before expecting others to do so. The social proof mechanism operates top down in hierarchical situations. What leaders do tells the organization what is actually expected of them. So the Stagnation Assassin verdict here: definitely weaponize it. 50 years of organizational behavior research contains genuine operational intelligence. Loss aversion, expectancy theory, social proof, the progress principle, these are all real phenomena with practical implications. Learn the research well enough to identify which findings are most relevant to your specific behavioral change, and then translate them into specific operational interventions rather than just general principles. So that's organizational behavior, the research that explains the gap between what you communicate and what actually changes. For more on organizational performance transformation, grab the Unfair Advantage and the Stagnation Assassin on Amazon. Follow the Stagnation Assassin show and visit toddhagopian.com. You cannot manage to what people should do in theory. You manage to what they actually do in response to what you actually measure and reward.